Ink Ribbon.
There are so many new indie survival horror games that it can be overwhelming, but in this video, I'm going to try to help you find some new ones that you'll love. This is kind of something new that I'm trying, so I hope you like it. I just want to support indie survival horror games because they're keeping classic survival horror alive, and they're the only ones because AAA just doesn't care anymore. So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to give each game 2 hours just to really give it a chance and get into it, and I am only focusing on indie games. I'm also not going to be giving any review scores. I'm just going to tell you what I liked and what I didn't like, because your opinions and tastes are going to be different from mine, so something that I don't like might be something that you do like. And lastly, links to all these games will be down in the description. First, we have You Will Die Here Tonight, and I'm really excited to tell you guys about this one. The easiest way I can describe it to a Resident Evil fan is it's like Resident Evil Gaiden, but better in every way. First thing to know is, unlike Resident Evil 1, where you play as one character, in this game you play as the entire team, one by one. Almost like a roguelike, but kind of not. It's hard to explain. So imagine you're playing Resident Evil 1 and Chris gets crushed by the ceiling trying to get the shotgun, so he's permanently dead. Then you play as Rebecca, but then she gets killed by a hunter, so now you play as Jill, etc. That's kind of how this game works. So you play as each member of the team and you go through one by one. If you die, you play as the next one, and once all the team is dead, then it's game over. And it's cool because you can continue the progress where you left off, where your last character died. So maybe if they die in a trap, now you know for the next character not to do the exact same thing and try something different. It's got great presentation. The in-game graphics are top-down and kind of remind me of older games on like the Game Boy Advance, or maybe like older PC games from way back in the day, with extra features like being able to look through keyholes to see into locked rooms and a few other fun things. And side note, this POV actually helped me in terms of navigation a lot. So if you get lost in games like I do very easily, this helps a lot with that. My favorite part of the visuals were the battle screens, which go into this like 3D view and have sort of PS2 graphics, allowing you to shoot, knife, and ram enemies, each with different behaviors to keep you on your toes. Like there was these really scary maids that sort of crawl around and they're legitimately terrifying. I also had a boss battle at one point with like a suit of armor, but I got to take his shield afterwards and then use it as a weapon, which was so cool. Oh, I love it so much. These really reminded me of those knife sections in Resident Evil DS, if you ever played that. Speaking of, it has a lot of nods to Resident Evil 1, with it almost being a parody of the first game, even including the boulder chase. I could tell you more, but I don't want to spoil it because I know some of you are going to want to play this. The characters also each play differently, not only with their speed and strength changing, and they really feel different. Some characters run way slower than others, but also their personalities are different. So when you examine things, you examine it in that character's voice in their head, and some of them are actually really, really funny the way that they're written. While the writing is light and the game doesn't take itself seriously, there were actually moments in the story that made me gasp and want to know more, but obviously I'm not going to spoil that here. Also, this game was fun, but it was not really easy, but it was really enjoyable. So if you're a Resident Evil fan and you're looking for a challenge or just want to try something fresh and new, then definitely check this game out. Next, we have Flesh Made Fear. This one just came out very recently, and once I got into it, it was enjoyable. The beginning was very slow with a ton of exposition just dumped onto the player. However, it was fully voice acted, so that was nice. The characters are kind of like a police team in an action movie, sort of like Stars, but not really. They're a lot more gritty, and everything has like this VHS horror movie aesthetic. So tons of over-the-top blood and gore and all that stuff. And this game is very dark. I mean, like, literally very, very dark. There's so many times that I can't see anything at all unless my flashlight is shining on it, which is a shame because I love these crispy PS1 graphics and I wanted to see the interiors more, which were nice and had sort of like Silent Hill vibes. Some of the locations were like a gas station and there was a motel. The combat was standard and the controls were great, but the enemies did feel a little bullet spongy. One of the coolest things, though, was being able to dual wield knives. Felt very badass. Probably my only real complaint about this game is that there's too many long, empty, winding paths that you have to go through, and it just makes backtracking and navigating a slog. And I don't know. Also, if there's any enemies here, you can just kind of run around them because it's a really wide path. There's no narrow hallways to give you that claustrophobic feel. And also, I have to give props because almost every interaction or sequence or whatever was animated. So, like, if a character jumps off of something, you actually see them do it. Or if you pick something up or reacts to anything, it was all animated. And that's a very nice touch. I ended up getting stuck at the first boss, and that's right around the time that my 2 hours was up. So that's where I stopped. But if you like Silent Hill 1 and Resident Evil 1, then you'll most likely enjoy this game. But just be patient with the opening. Next is Them and Us. I've had this in my Steam library for a really long time, and a lot of you have been asking me to play it, so I'm glad I finally got to it. First off, there's multiple control schemes, so you could choose tank controls or over the shoulder, which was really nice, and I went with over the shoulder. The knife is all you get at the beginning of the game for quite a while, but thankfully it's really powerful, especially against living things. You are also able to kind of cheese enemies. If you just get close enough to swipe them and then take a step back, you can just kind of knife everything. Also, immediately, you can change outfits, which was awesome. I think every survival horror game should have a ton of outfits. Some of these were normal, and some of these were gooner, and there was also some DLC outfits if you really want a big selection. I changed them multiple times while playing, so if you see a sexy cop or a French maid, just go with it. Eventually you find a handgun, and it works, though combat is very basic. From what I could tell, there wasn't limb damage, but I did pull off quite a few headshots, which was always satisfying. The environments are great and have kind of a PS3 era feel to them, which makes sense considering this was made with UDK, the version of Unreal I was using in college. To save your game, you use records instead of ink ribbons, and each one has a different sort of classical piece of music to it. And as a nice touch, they actually play the associated song, which of course includes Moonlight Sonata. Where Flesh Made Fear may have had too much story, this game might have too little. Aside from her waking up in a crashed prison bus, I literally never encountered any story in my entire 2 hours of playing. Not a single cutscene or even another character, and I don't even think I found many files, so that's worth mentioning. I did, however, find myself lulled into that game flow of looking for items and unlocking doors to advance, and it was kind of nice and relaxing. Except for the confusing puzzles. To give you an example, at some point I found garden shears and had absolutely no idea what to use them on. The description said that they could be used on skin, and I was like, okay, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with this, so I looked up a guide, and sure enough, I had to actually use them to trim a hedge, which the game did not make apparent at all. So yeah, it's one of those games. If you enjoy Resident Evil 1 Remake, you'll like this game, but don't expect any real story, and also maybe keep a guide handy for some of the more confusing and obscure puzzles. Next we have Alisa. Not only has this been in my backlog, but it's the only thing that I have ever backed on Kickstarter, so I'm glad to finally play it. First and foremost, in terms of classic 90s feel, the presentation is 100% accurate. This feels like a literal PC game from the 90s, something you'd play on a school computer and think about all weekend. To make pre-rendered backgrounds in modern day is extremely difficult and time-consuming, so I have to commend the dev for going all the way. With the authentic graphics comes the authentic difficulty, though. I died a lot while playing this, and it was really hard, and it has all the quirks, like you start from your last save. There's no auto-saves, there's none of that stuff, like it's how it was back in the day, so don't let the cute doll look fool you, it's a hard game. Speaking of that, honestly, I went into this kind of thinking, this whole Victorian doll thing just isn't my vibe, but the more I played it, the more it grew on me, especially with how thematically everything ties together, from the weapons, to the enemies, to the outfits. Yep, lots of outfits to unlock and wear. There was also a lot of imaginative elements, like an eyeball key that looks around, or a birdcage key with a tiny little bird moving inside. Just little fun stuff like that were really nice touches. They also did some gameplay experiments, which is my favorite thing about indie games, is they try something new. For example, this America's Next Top Model pendulum runway. My favorite part of this game is the currency, though. When you kill enemies, they drop these little gear things, which are the currency. I think they're called tooth wheels. And you can spend them on anything you want, including new outfits, new weapons, upgrades, and even items like health or ammo. Also, you need to spend 1 to save your game. It's a small thing that just drastically changes how you play a survival horror game. And it also really rewards you for killing enemies versus running away from them. I personally believe that if this game had been released in the 90s, it would have changed survival horror and been a huge, huge hit. I'm really looking forward to playing through the rest of it, and I highly recommend it. There's also a sequel currently in development, so be sure to keep an eye out for that one. And last but not least, a little game called Lake Heaven Chrysalis. This one I bought a long time ago and I just never got around to it till now. It was only $2.99, but it's just a prologue, so it's short. It's very Silent Hill 1 flavored, so if you like the aesthetics of that game, this should feel nice and cozy. Everything is very minimal, but I could tell a lot of love had been put into it by the dev, and I could see what they were going for. The camera sometimes goes into cool cinematic movements, which are cool the first time, but then sometimes it sort of causes camera issues where I can't see my character or things get in the way. The story was also really interesting and creepy, but the inspection text that your character has is full of like jokes, and it was weird. It kind of felt like a big clash of tone. If I found a creepy dead lady in a scary house in the middle of nowhere, I would not be making jokes. The puzzles were all fine, they were standard, I kind of understood all of them, except for a clock puzzle where I finally just gave up and looked it up online, and I still have no idea how I was supposed to figure it out. Honestly, this game is fine. What you see is what you get. I'm really excited to see what the full game will be, and I'm sure that if improvements are made, then it'll be excellent. And according to the dev, he is still actively working on it. So those were 5 indie survival horror games, and I look forward to playing more. If you want to go through your wish list real quick and see if there's any survival horror games that you've thought about buying but you're not sure and you'd like me to play them for you and let you know how they are, leave recommendations in the comments. And remember, buying an indie game is directly supporting a person, not pleasing shareholders or paying some CEO. When you buy an indie game, you're paying for a daughter's dance recital, or someone has put their heart and soul into these games, and I really want to support that. And if you're one of the game devs who made any of the games that I reviewed today, just know that everything I say is out of love. So if I said anything bad, it's because I want your next game to be great. I really enjoyed making this video. It was very fun, and I got to finally play all these games, so I would love to do more. If you want to see another video like this, leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thank you so much. Remember to drink water, and until next time, I'm Kai Morgan, and as always, thanks for watching Ink Ribbon.